Oklahoma. I had left California because it kind of come to the end, I guess. Things weren't good. The situation with the guy that I was with, Silvio, wasn't good. I didn't foresee a good future. I more foresaw that, I would end up in jail um, because of things that he was doing. And the first thing would be that my daughter would be taken away from me, for one, because of what he was doing. And so, and I've mentioned some stuff about that in previous vlogs. So, my dad had suggested for years for me to go to Oklahoma, and that my aunt Rosanna needed help, and why don't I do that? And it's like, why? Why would I want to leave beautiful, sunshiny California, Beverly Hills, Century City, the Valley, Santa Monica, Marina Del Rey? Why on earth would I want to go to Oklahoma and do they have a beach? Because, that's my thing, you know? And so, anyway, I guess if I had studied more what Oklahoma was going to be like, I definitely wouldn't have gone. I would have tried some other different routes some way, somehow. The only problem was I was young and I had a kid, which I thought was God's will to take me out of the bar rooms and the party life because I had someone to live for that would love me back, you know? And I just thought it was God's will because I was never supposed to have kids. And so I figured it was a blessing. I never got any child support from that man. My daddy was after me for years to do something. And I was like, nope, I own her outright. And that was mostly because of a movie I saw where the two parents were fighting so bad. They were fighting over the kid, and the kid just had so much emotional damage. It was terrible. If you're going to part ways, try to part friends. I stayed in contact with her dad forever. I would send him pictures that were, from the past so that he would never know what she exactly looked like because he would say creepy, spooky things sometimes when I would talk to him on the phone. Like, you never know. I may come out of the darkness, and I'll be there. And weird stuff. And I kind of got spooked because I thought maybe he would come to kidnap her. Although the reality was that's not something he would want to do. It would be very, very difficult. He would have to pay somebody to raise her. And it just, when you take a baby from its mother, it's I think it's not a good thing. It can be good. My dad raised us when my mother gave up on raising us, and we were going to go to foster home, and literally they were doing paperwork at that time, and I found out my dad was still alive because my grandpa told me, and I made that call twice, and my daddy showed up in 24 hours. And he did what he had to do, and it actually did it illegally. She refused to sign papers. He came back twice, and he took us anyway. And I don't know how he really got away with it, but because she had custody, but he did it, and he was one of the few single-parent men that raised kids back in that day and age. That was a really big thing. He was on a TV show for that in California. So, it was definitely life-changing for him, but his love of his life was his babies, who he really didn't get to see for a lot of years. But although that didn't work out well for me, I guess because we were too much the same, like two bulls in an arena. We were both too smart for each other for years. Unfortunately, we just were not very close. It was more like a business relationship. And that's unfortunate because I spent 3/4 of my life, until my father really accepted me and really loved me and loved me for who I was instead of what I had to pretend to be when I was around my daddy. Navy men, you know what I mean? So uh that's been great, Um and uh I would say out of all the people in the world, my daddy's my best friend. Um and always he's always had the best advice. I mean, he was always right. You ever know somebody that's always right? Well, that's my daddy, always right. And it's he used to say something, don't do as I do as I say. When I'd say, well, you don't do that. But let me tell you what, we as parents want our kids to be better than us. We've seen the problems, we've grown up in our lives, we've been through it. All we're trying to do is try to keep you from sidestepping into that pile of poo poo because we're seeing it coming. We've been there, we've done that. We're just trying to make your life easier. So after years of, when I would call him, and I always call my daddy all through the years, even though we weren't very close for many, many years, in respect to my daddy. Okay. I always sent a card or had, a coin to put in a payphone to call him on like New Year's, Christmas, Thanksgiving, his birthday, and Father's Day. Always. One time I didn't have a dime. I didn't have money for a postage stamp. And I missed one thing. I think it was like Thanksgiving or something. And it was like I was never forgiven. Oh my gosh. It took years, basically until I left the state of California. And I kind of got like the rewards after I left, I guess. It was kind of like the payoff deal, like, man, I'm glad she's out of here. Because it was like the state of California was not big enough for the two of us. It just wasn't. I was getting tired of the people that I knew since I was a kid that were like, oh, your daddy bought you this car. Oh, your daddy bought you that jewelry. Oh, your daddy bought you that fur coat. Like, no, 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 and no. I went out, I worked for it. I left home young and I went out and worked for it. I had nobody to be responsible for but myself. Okay? It wasn't call daddy for help, call daddy for money. When I left home, it was if you step over that doorstep, you don't come back and don't ask me for nothing. That's before I even left. So I respected it. Always respected it. But anyway, so after every time I would call about a problem, the first thing he would say is, well, why don't you move to Oklahoma? And you could, help your Aunt Roseanne. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, that was so obscure. It was just, I mean, how do you come up with that? What is Oklahoma? I went there to visit, on Christmases. My daddy would fly me back there. And it was really, I hate to say it, hillbilly podunk country, behind the times, dirt, like tumbleweed and rutabagas or whatever. I mean, it was. And then when I found out there was no beach, and the guys had like they wore jeans, baseball caps, and they had cowboy boots with poo poo on them, and that was not my version of a cowboy. Yeah, maybe those guys were in Texas. Those guys that look like the Marlboro Man. I mean, even if you're not country, you're gonna like the Marlboro Man. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So uh, I gave up. I shipped everything out through the United States Post Office, everything I could put in a box. Cost about $400. My good friend, bald headed Fred Ruff, engineer friend of mine, loaned me his little yellow truck that was mint. He had this old little yellow truck that was so funny. And uh, he let me have it for like a month to move everything. Because at that time, I had several cars, but none of them were suitable. Ron had stole the Lincoln by then. We were driving the Firebirds, and my convertible was really tiny. And so, you know, it, I, the truck was really handy. So I was packing stuff up every single day, as much as I could. I left so much behind. Oh my gosh. It was like I walked out of my place, just turned the key. And it was really sad. But, you know, I came to that conclusion it was time to go. It was a scary life. I didn't want that for my child. They started, instead of having dance contests to who's the best when I was a kid, it was like they were fighting with chains and knives in the schools there in LA County, which covers 3/4 of the state. And uh, that the rent got so high, I was paying $1,000 a month, and I was living in Inglewots, and it was the choice of Inglewots or downtown LA, which you can't even own a car in downtown LA. Um, uh, you know, all to be left is the transmission fluid and the oil on the ground. Okay, so you just can't have a car. And I did not want to live in downtown LA. God, it was nasty. That's about the most foul, nastiest city in the state of California, I think. I would venture to say, maybe other than Sacramento. But yeah, so, well, Compton. Compton's pretty bad. But yeah, I used to buy car parts in Compton a lot. But that was always scary. Really scary, day or night. But anyway, so, I moved to Oklahoma because I didn't foresee a future. I really didn't. I didn't foresee marriage with this guy. I did not foresee, although he lived with me like 8 years, I did not foresee anything other than getting pregnant again when I was never supposed to have children. And I did not want to raise two kids close together because it's too expensive in babysitter fees. At that point, I was paying like $220 a week to a lawyer's wife, so that I can work. And uh, it was just like, man, it's so expensive to raise a kid. And so, I didn't know what the world had to bring. Um, uh, you know, uh, so, I packed everything up, taking it to the post office every single day, shipping and shipping and shipping to where all the stuff will be shipped to one of the main offices, the Grand Valley Abstract in Prior Creek, Oklahoma, one of my aunt's bigger businesses, and long-time business. She owned an entire marble bank, okay, in this little bitty podunk town. And I mean, it was podunk. I'm serious. It was so little you could walk across that sucker. Okay, yeah. Uh, Everything was around the corner. Your house, the store, everything was around the corner. You could walk to everything. But anyway, so uh, I shipped everything out as much as I could, and then I paid some shippers to ship the really important stuff because Fred advised it. So I wanted to ship my big giant elephant with the trunk up. That was my good luck Cuban elephant. Um, uh, I shipped a sewing machine, my giant Marilyn Monroe picture, which I treasured, uh, and some other things. And every bit of that stuff was destroyed when I got it. It was destroyed. And the company I invested in with the insurance and the guarantee and all that crap, I took it down there and they packed it all to ship it. And they shipped it out. And it was all garbage. And I never got any money back out of that deal. Paid huge money for that. And when I should have took it to UPS. But so um, when I got there, it was like I still had mail coming like every day, every day, every day. Other than the fact I had about 60 boxes to begin with. And I had to move all that stuff to my new apartment because my aunt owns a little apartment complex and with about, I don't know, 10, 15 units in it. And moved into a very nice apartment for free because she owned it. She so called claimed I'd be managing it. That was never really quite true. I never collected rents, but I had to do everything else. Um, but anyway, but it's okay. I mean, I came there with $0, 0 cents, I guess, and my daughter and I were eating. We had clothes, we had heat and air and food, and I ended up with a car after a few months. I wanted to go back and get one of my other cars, and I never got a chance to do that until later. I went back, and it was really a sad story. But anyway, so I was really excited to have my first Christmas with my new baby, who at that time was about probably I'd say 8 months old, I guess, almost a year old. And I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I could make like a really great Christmas, do the Christmassy stuff, which I always worked holidays until I had kids. And so it wasn't really a massively important thing, except for the heartbreak when you couldn't be with your loved one. One of my boyfriends or husbands, whatever, for the holiday because it worked. Because you have to commit. You got to work holidays. You got to work weekends. And I got them all. There was no way out. I always ended up with them all. I mean, unless you did the extra stuff, like people I knew, and they got to do whatever they wanted. They could be late, they could be absent, they could not have to ever work holidays. But I wasn't doing the extra stuff. If I'm going to be a hooker, I'm going to charge $1 million and you're going to want change back, okay? I'm going to do it up right, dude. You know what I mean? I'll have 30 Cadillacs in the driveway, one a different color for every day. You know what I mean? Yeah, and never get my heart broke. You know. But anyway, so uh, I was really excited. Now my aunt had this beautiful house on the lake in Salina, which was kind of like what 20, 30 minutes from Pryor Creek in Bayes County, Oklahoma, and it was like on this cliff overlooking this giant lake. I think it was called Lake Hudson. And I'm like, man, I could be sailing on this lake. If they have waves, I could be surfing. You know, and this is what happens when you come from the big city with concrete sidewalks, 6-inch stiletto heels from Fredericks to Hollywood, great clothes, floor-length fur coats, cut off tops and cool clothes, and foot-long fingernails and truckloads of jewelry around your neck and your hands and everything, and you come to this place where Stiley is a Pendleton plaid long sleeve shirt, white pointed tinnies, and some Wranglers or Lee jeans was the style. Oh my gosh! And it wasn't even Western. Western's like that cowboy hat. Cool shirt with embroidery. Like some really cool, swinging bell bottom pants, jeans, and some really pretty cowboy boots with gold tips on the front and a heel tips on the back, and some cool spurs hanging down or something. You know what I mean? All that cool stuff and lots of turquoise jewelry. No, it's not like that. Maybe in Texas, but not in Oklahoma. A cool girl wore crap like that. And to me, that's not dressing. Yucky poo poo. I couldn't wear like half of my clothes out there because they were a bit extreme. I mean, my idea of going to the grocery store was shorts and heels. You know what I mean? And I did that a few times, but it got kind of out of control. But anyway, so yeah, so it was definitely interesting. So I was really excited. I wanted to do something wonderful because I was so grateful to my evil Aunt Roseanne. Um, and she had been alone for years since she was with my Uncle Ernest. And uh, it was just strange. She was made of money, and she had nobody. And I couldn't quite figure it out. She's pretty crass, pretty strong. She's kind of pungent, like garlic, but a very brilliant businesswoman. But God, she was frugal. God, she wouldn't spend a penny for her life. But anyway, so I was pretty grateful. Plus, I had my kid. I was safe. My car always had full tank. She was very gracious, to my daughter and I. And she just adored my daughter. And it was just unreal, you know, because I never visualized having parents to babysit my kids or anything else because, like my dad said, if you ever have kids in your life, don't ever bring them to me because they'll be just like you. I'm not the babysitter. Where other people had parents and sisters and brothers that always loved to take their kids and watch them when you had to work or whatever. My kids didn't go into the babysitter unless I was working. That was my rule because by the time they were 12, then they're, overnighting at their friends' houses and all that other crap, and 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 then they're gone. Okay, so I wanted to do it upright. I wanted to do it upright so my kids could never say I had a bad childhood. My parents were always gone or something. So I wanted to do it upright. My parents worked all the time. They worked hard for what we had. My parents were never around. I knew my nannies more than I knew my parents. You know what I mean? That's how I learned a lot of different languages. Was at home because these nannies they bring in didn't speak any damn English, and that's how I learned. You know, if it's put in front of you, you'll learn it. Trust me, it's by experience, usage, and experience. It doesn't have to be from the book. So anyway, I my first Christmas in Oklahoma, I was so excited, and I was working at the abstract office, she started giving me a little bit of a paycheck or something, I think. And so, or she would hand me cash or something. I don't know. Oh, she'd give me walking around money, like once a week, like $100. That was a lot of money. She paid my phone bill. She paid my utilities, even my long distance phone bill, which was huge. Even when I got Sprint, a Sprint account to discount and all that, because I would talk to my friends in Oklahoma forever, every night. Because I just would cry as I missed California so bad. I just hated it. It was so country and such a simple life. Oh my God. And it was about half the price of living in California. Utilities, rent, all that stuff, and even gas, everything, cars. It was like half the price of what it would cost you to live in California at that time. And so, but it was safer. It was a safer place to raise kids. Everybody knew everybody. You knew every car that went down the street. You knew everybody lived in every house. You just knew everybody. You knew everybody that worked at every store. You just knew everybody. And they were like family. And so it was very interesting where California is a little more on the colder side. Like a stranger says hello to you, you go, man, they're a freak, you know, because that's the way it is. You don't talk to strangers in California. You don't get friendly with people you don't know, you know. If you break down on the highway, you're going to be dead, cut up in pieces, and raped as a girl. So you better know how to work on your car in California. If you break down in Oklahoma, you got 10 different people, 10 different dudes, including the local police, that pull over and offer to help you. It's amazing. Entirely different way of life. Something out of the storybook, something I used to call it the Twilight Zone. So anyway, I'd get my little monies together. And I would turn around. I was sewing on the side, making dresses for people, trying to do consignment shop stuff, making baby clothes and things, which I was really good at. And there were no strip joints in this town. So there was no money for me to go make real quick by making some panties and gloves and running them down to a club. All that stuff was like in Tulsa, an hour and a half away. And that was a big trip, to do that. Especially to find a babysitter because, I mean, people would call my Aunt Rosanna, go, okay, she used us for a babysitter today from such and such time to such and such time. And then I'd get that call from Rosanna, all drunk, going, where were you at? What were you doing? And that was the bad side of the deal. She thought she was like my mom or something, and she was really evil. And I was a grown person, okay, grown. And so anyway, uh, I decide that I'm going to decorate the house. I go through the garage. I go through everything in the house. I reorganize the garage, clean it up, put out rat poison, all that good stuff. Make it so she can now park her car in the garage instead of in the driveway because she had brand new Lincoln. And it didn't need to be out there under the trees. And especially in the wintertime, it was senseless with the snow on the ground and all that to be parking outside and have to run into the house, when you could just park the car in the garage. So anyway, I found a little bit of Christmas stuff, bought a bunch of Christmas stuff, and then I wanted to get a tree for the house because that's where we went. That's where we would meet. Roseanne rarely ever come to my apartment. I think she'd come in there once. Um, but she'd call me and say, be at the lake house. You'll be there before me. And all that kind of stuff. Light the fireplace, turn the heat on, whatever. And so anyway, I thought I'll doll up the lake house, for Christmas as a big surprise. Make it beautiful because Mount Roseanne's always been alone all these years, and I just thought it would be a beautiful gesture. So I decorated this house inside and out. I mean, it was just beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and it was just enchanting. It was about the prettiest house on the street there, overlooking the lake. And the neighbors just, watched. They thought it was really strange because they were like, this house hasn't been decorated as long as I've lived here, you know. And it's like, really? And they just kind of, shook their head. And so, I was just so excited as a kid. Let's make it Christmassy. Like, when I grew up with my parents, my mother would put on the most beautiful Christmases. My grandfather put on the most beautiful Thanksgivings with all the relatives. And, oh, God, it was just great. And so I went to go get this tree. And so, I wanted a live tree. Who wants a plastic tree? Gross. Vomit. So I go and I'm with my baby girl, and so we're trying to pick out a tree, and I got her in my little backpack thing that I carry her in, so uh, you know I find this tree, and I mean it's dead of winter. God, went to this tree place, and the trees were a lot cheaper than in California, and so but I still ended up paying a lot of money. I wanted, a certain kind of tree. I wanted like, the tree like my mom always had. It was like tiered. And then she would get it white flocked. Well, these people didn't even know how to do white flocking. I don't think they even heard of it. And when I asked them, I think they laughed. They just thought I was something else. And I was just really ritzy. So, I just really just wanted that kind of tree. And so then they tell me what kind it was, and I was okay, well, I want one of those. And because you couldn't tell, because most of the stuff was like tied up or scrunched up or laying down, and it was just a little tree place, on the side of the road kind of thing. And so anyway, I found one I thought would be pretty good, and trying to guess the height of that glass room that overlooked the lake. And so I figured, well, most ceilings are about 6-7 foot tall. I'm thinking that one's a little taller. I don't know. So I opted for one I thought would be good. And I thought, well, if worse comes to worse, I guess I'd cut the top off. But you got to have enough top to put the angel on, right? You got to have that little sticky part. And so anyway, got this tree. They tied it on top of the car. I was driving a really big car at that time. And drove it out to the lake house in the evening, brought it in, and I had a little stand, an old stand that I found in the garage with a little bowl under it and all that. and put it up. And then the first weekend Roseanne comes in, she was mad as hell. She's like, "What did you do to my house?" And I'm like, "I decorated it for the holiday." And she was like furious. So I take it down. I'm like, "Why?" She said, "Take all that stuff off the front of the house in the RV. Just get it off." I mean, for one thing, it made the house look lived in. The place always looked vacant. She was hardly ever there till I got there. Then she would come down just about every weekend. Otherwise she was there about once a month. So, because she had moved to Tulsa, she was living in my cousin John Cash Jr.'s wife's former house in Tulsa, a big condo thing, and and the South they kind of call them townhouses, but where I come from, they call them condos because everything's stacked. So anyway, and then an apartment is apartment. An apartment is not a damn condo. So anyway, in Florida, that's what they call it. It's a condo and it's an apartment, and that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so I thought it was great. It keeps people from robbing the house. And so anyway, I ended up having to take all that stuff off the front of the house. She was absolutely furious, but the rest she let it stay. I'm like, well, it's the baby's first Christmas. I mean, what's wrong with it? I decked this place out. It was beautiful, and it really deserved it. And she didn't have time for all that crap. You know what I mean? And I was a million times younger than her, so what did she care? I did all the work. I raked all the yards. I burned all the leaves. And so anyway, she uh, she looks at that tree and she says, "It's dead." I said, "What do you mean it's dead?" I said, "It's a live tree. It's dead." She's laughing at me. She's about half rolled up the window shade. She used to love to drink that wine, as soon as she got in town in the house. And she would get cranky, dude, I'm telling you. Ugh. It took everything to keep me from just about knocking her out. She was so horrible and evil, and a gracious woman, but she was really mean, and that's my dad's sister. So anyway, you know, she's like, "Yeah, it's dead." So now she's making fun of my damn tree. I spent $35 for that thing. $35. You know what I could do with $35? So, I was just trying to do something nice and trying to do something wonderful for my baby. I really didn't have room to put a tree in my apartment. Um, but I just thought it was such a big, beautiful place overlooking the water. It deserved all that. And there was plenty of room. I mean, you didn't have to move furniture and all that. She kept a pretty nice house. Okay. And so, anyway, even though it had probably all the original furniture since she bought it, which looked virtually new, and that wonderful player piano. Oh, man, I miss that. So, anyway, yeah, she kept making fun of the tree. About every 2 hours, the tree's dead. I said, well, put some water in there. It's just a plant. I'm trying like hell for all the time before Christmas to get this tree to come back to life or something, because I mean it's dead. It's been cut off from the ground, so a tree is dead. You know what I mean? It's dead. That's the way it is. But to her, it was seriously dead. So anyway, I tried like hell. I got water. I got some special stuff you stick in the water to try to, give the tree life or extend it or whatever. I did everything I could. Uh, for all I know, these guys sprayed the tree green to make it look green. I don't know. She really was convinced it was seriously dead. And I don't know, tree's a tree. But anyway, so that was so sad. And I mean, the Christmas day, she made me haul that tree out of the house. Okay, you get it out now. It was just as soon as my daughter finished opening her presents, and it was really funny. My daughter liked the boxes more than the gifts. I swear. She had more fun with the boxes than the gifts. It was so comical. I mean, Roseanne sat there with that glass of wine that morning and she was like, well, it seems that she likes the boxes more than the gifts. Roseanne put out a lot of money. She bought a lot of beautiful, beautiful stuff, especially from her travels. Some clothes she picked up in NOLA and all kinds of things. And I mean, she would buy like 30 outfits. I mean, just beautiful stuff. And I mean, I sewed, so it kind of hurt because I made everything but my daughter's shoes and pantyhose. You know what I mean? I could sew, and all my kids had a tuxedo when they were babies for going to really neat places and stuff. There was nothing really neat to go to in Oklahoma in Mays County. There was nowhere to go. There was just nothing. I mean, their hop the hip place to go was the Sonic Drive-In, man. Yeah, and that's not the tuxedo place for your kid. It was pretty strange, that place. But anyway, I thank God I felt like I was in jail. Thank God I didn't do much time there. Um, God, a year or two at max, and I found a way out. And I had a big lawsuit, and my friends stole like all the money, like 90% of the money, stole it outright. My trusted friends in the Browns, yeah, I was young and dumb. I trusted people that I should have never trusted. The only one you should trust is yourself. You can't trust other people. And but anyway, my dad sent a bunch of stuff from California, really expensive stuff, and sent me a camera. I think a pretty nice little camera. It wasn't like a Nikon or anything like the cool stuff he had. It was a newer, compact type camera thing in the box. It was pretty expensive, and sent me that, which was great. It was so cool because I could take lots of pictures. All the pictures that were lost in the stolen storages. But anyway, so it was kind of like my dad was paying me to stay out of state. It was like I didn't have Christmases until I left California, pretty much after I left home. There was no such thing. My daddy was never around for the holidays after I left home. He was always traveling and running the different sailing schools in different places, from Ensenada to Hawaii and all that stuff. And teaching at colleges, like 4 or 5 different colleges he taught at all at the same time, plus running his business and teaching there too. And so he was just never around. He was that guy that you called at the office. You'd call the office and you'd ask for him, and they go, "Who is this?" It was like they did this major screening of a phone call. And it's like, "This is his daughter," you know, and they just didn't even believe you. They would lie to you. And most of the time he was like out of the country, out of the state, but they didn't want to tell you, where he was at, how long he was going to be gone, anything. It's like you just said, "Is he there? Will he be back today?" It was like a puzzle. But yeah, but let me tell you, that first Christmas, it kind of broke my heart. I think of it today when I look at a tree. I'm thinking about that transition I made, leaving and going to California, taking that jump, taking that risk, all paid for, taking my daddy's advice that I thought was so stupid. Uh, I was forced to take it. I didn't have a choice. It was an open door. I needed to exit stage right. I needed a good escape because I didn't see a good future. I saw a very bad future, no matter how it lay. Um, I felt like my safest position was to be as far away as possible and only be in contact with a few very close friends. Like don't leave a forwarding address and no, phone number. Um, I just, kept a few of my select friends, and that was it. Uh, it was definitely interesting. Definitely interesting. But I did what I planned to do. I gave my baby her very first beautiful, outrageously beautiful Christmas. We had a blast decorating. I thought it was awesome, and I hope you did too. I love you guys, but remember, Christmas is all year round. It's not just one time a year, okay? All year round, don't forget it. Life is a blessing. You're blessed every day. I'll see you in the next one. Do something kind for a stranger. Love everybody. Too much of a good thing is wonderful. We'll take a lot of that. Love you guys.